Well. Good evening, everyone. Hi, this is Christine here. And wow, today is it's a bit conflicting actually. So, Elon Musk, he was defending this morning about the government role and dismisses that there's a conflict of interest for the contract which he applied for, which according to what I listened to this morning, was saying by him and Donald Trump that he'd actually won the contract of 400 million. And he was questioned as to whether it was a conflict. Elon Musk's response was that it's not a conflict because it's not him that's applying for the contract, it's his workers. How do you get that, for example? So this is what this live is about today, is really to talk about when we apply for contracts, that there's not meant to be any conflicts. You're not meant to be a worker, for example. You're not meant to be associated with the government that is providing that contract, for example, because it can be seen as a conflict of interest. And I've just put in the link there. There's the US Department in America, for example, where you also get to see the contract that was awarded, for example. And there's contracts that are available, but also there's contracts which are awarded, for example. So, but then I've just read over a 2 minute section there that Musk has said that that he hasn't got this contract yet, but yet they said that he did have this contract yet, but yet other people, you can imagine how other defense organizations, those that provide the contracts to the government, for example, in America, and they work in the defense section, they know their stuff, for example. And it seemed as if they hadn't been included in something. And it just seems as if Elon Musk had won this contract without it actually being sent out fairly to everybody and for everybody to really go through it. And yes, Elon Musk does have a lot of experience with cars and electric cars and innovation and electric cars, etc. But surely the other organizations that usually provide these types of contracts, or win these contracts, or apply for these contracts at least, get to be able to put forward their submissions, their proposals, for example, their questions and answers, so that the best man wins. Isn't this about how Donald Trump had mentioned that the best person wins on merit, for example? Now, if you haven't been given that chance to apply for a contract, and it seems as if it's been given to someone without actually going through all of the correct procedures, like for example in the UK, everybody under contract 2015 Act, for example, everybody has the chance to apply. And yes, the best person wins. But if other organizations didn't get a chance to put forward their submission, then surely there's something wrong there. And to say this on national television or with the press, that he's been awarded this contract of $400 million to provide the electric cars, etc., then that means that other people may have been excluded from submitting this contract, or maybe it hadn't gone to final stage, but yet they blew the horn and said, yes, Elon Musk has got this. So this is what this live is about today. there is a spreadsheet which I will be going through with you. And this spreadsheet, I'm going to put the link actually here to see whether it comes up on in the chat, for example. But you can see that this is saying who has been awarded contracts or waiting or it's incomplete, for example. And this is the Department of State, for example. So I'm just going to put this link here and then I will continue because I don't want you to not have this. So this is why I'm putting this here now in the stream. So I hope everyone is doing well, for example. And this is another file which I'm putting here. And this is a government spreadsheet that tells you about the contracts, for example, because I want to be able to show you things and I want you to be able to see for yourself, for example. So let's go diving into this, for example, so that you can have a piece of this pie, because at the end of the day, everyone has the chance to apply, providing you meet the criteria and that you are of the that you've got the experience and that you can show evidence that you're able to do this, for example. And yes, it may seem a bit unfair, but let's look at what you can actually do rather than just jumping straight to the top, for example. So I'm just going to go through this with you. So it appears that Elon Musk and the U.S. Department of State, according to the feed, the press, for example, 400 million contract headline and images of the winning of this particular contract. So this is a massive controversy which is unfolding. Elon Musk, I believe, has put something on X. I haven't looked yet to say that no, that didn't happen. But earlier on today, it was saying that he just secured a $400 million contract from the U.S. Department of State. And this was on the internet. Literally, the internet, it was on fire, debating whether this is a conflict of interest or just smart business. Now, Elon Musk said, no, it's not a conflict of interest, blah, blah, blah. But, we all know that if that's the case, then it is a conflict of interest. You can't stand there in the Oval Office talking, giving information like he's been doing, and the Doge team, for example. It is a conflict of interest because he's in the governmental department, for example. So the US government, they seem to be playing a favorite game with the billionaires like Musk. So small business owners like yourself are getting left behind, but don't worry, because you can catch up, but you obviously won't be able to go to the level of, billionaires, for example, contracts. But you can also win contracts as well. Okay, so tonight I'm going to be breaking down this for you, and I'm going to be talking to you about how you can secure a contract that is similar to this, depending on your experience, your evidence of having a proven track record, and also your financial ability as well, according to a very large contract like this. So try and look at the ones that are smaller, for example, because you can win contracts which are like 10 million, for example, because when you're looking at the 400 million, 500 million contract, then, obviously it's getting quite large, for example. So if you're liking the video that I'm doing today, at the end, if you can like and subscribe, I would truly appreciate it as well. I want you to stay to the end because I want to be talking to you about how you can look at government contracting even if you don't have connections, because you're not meant to have connections at the end of the day. Okay, so let's look at this and break this down. So Musk, there's a $400 million contract. Let's talk about the facts. What exactly is this contract all about? Who was it awarded by? So the US Department of State. So what is it for? It's for Advanced Technology and National Security Initiative. Now, we all know that Elon Musk is very, very good at electric cars and efficiency, etc., environmental, etc. But for this to happen without other organizations being able to put forward their proposal, it's a conflict. He shouldn't have really have applied for this, because it is truly a conflict. If he's sat in the White House, in the Oval Office, for example, how can you be applying for contracts? Because you do know the president, you do know the government, for example. You work with the government, he's working with the government, because he's there talking to the press about what is best for America, for example. So some of the critics are arguing, and I'm talking from their point of view, not my point of view. They've argued that favoritism and also conflict of interest. So Elon Musk won billions in government contracts before. It's not the first. But is this fair competition? Or is it another example of the systems benefiting the wealthy, according to the press? So let's look at this in more detail, for example. So Elon Musk defense. Okay, so Elon says that people say that this is unfair, but the government needs the best technology, which I understand. I understand that the government needs the best technology. If we are the best, then why wouldn't we win? But who are the other people that applied? Was that mentioned that there was 50 other contractors that have supplied to the government that would have been suitable to have applied? How did they do? What was the scoring criteria? How many marks did Elon Musk get compared to the other organizations that do contracts in this way for the US Department, for example? So, but most small businesses don't get this chance. So let's look at deals that you can look at applying for. And I'm sure this is something that you'd be interested in, right? So let me see whether you're still watching. Just type in the chat so I can see, for example. Okay, so I hope you can hear me okay as well. So how can you get government contracts? Now, you'll see in the chat here that I've put something in the chat. I've put two links in here for you to see. One of them is the US Department. Okay, so one of them is about how you can get contracts, what small businesses can do, how you can work with the US Department, for example. And the second item that I put in the chat is a spreadsheet, and that tells you about the contracts that are available and contracts that have been submitted and complete, for example, and some that have been set aside, for example. So I want you to all look at that very closely, because this is something that you can also look at applying for. You can apply for contracts to do with the US State Department. Okay, try and look at, casting your net, for example. Like I said, I've always said that you can, even if you're in the UK, for example, there's Ministry of Defense. There's lots of things that you can cover, not just nurses, healthcare workers. There's lots of equipment you can supply. There's gloves, apron, toilet rolls that you can supply. There's lots of different things that you can supply to the governments, which they need, and the hospitals, for example, that's going to give you a very good chance as a small business owner. You don't have to look at the electric cars and things like that. If you want to, then that's your decision. For example, if you're able to meet that contract, then go ahead for it. But if you're not able to meet that, and that's why it's important to make sure that you read all of the criteria and the evaluation and any questionnaires and what is your proposal, for example, make sure that you meet that, for example. So you'll see that I put the two links here, and one of them is the US State Department, and it really talks about how you can apply as a business. It says about doing business with the Department of State, a one-stop shop for all business resources, for example. Then it says work with us, everything you need to know from start to finish. So click that. The link is in the chat, so click that. And this also talks about one-stop shop, for example. Then it will say, are you a small business? So it talks about 10 steps to start doing business with the US Department of State, provided by the Office of Small. And now we got this situation with the DEI, for example. So you need to really stay away from that until things are resolved. But try and focus on things that you can do on merit. Don't try and go in as DEI, and don't try and reword things as leadership or whatever, because those contracts that people have got, they're actually losing them. So these are now becoming available, for example. So when you're looking at a particular contract, don't be going on the DEIA, for example. You'll be going on it on merit, for example. Okay, so here it's got the 10 steps is define your product or service. So know what your PSC code for the products or service. Click that link and you'll be able to see what that code is, for example. Then it's got here, know the NAICS codes for your products or service. Then it's got register your business for legal entity within your state. Then obtain your federal tax ID number with the IRS.gov, for example. Then register with systems of the award management like SAM.gov, for example. And then you complete a small business profile at the end. Then number 2 is you identify your target market, your customers. So you will determine the bureau or office by the services, products you provide by reviewing the list of the State Department's bureau officers. So there's another link here, which is www.state.gov. And then there's past procurement, which is on sam.gov or USA spending.gov, for example. There's also the Office of Small and, well, I'm going to leave that one blank at the moment because of what's going on. I think they need to update this website So the department of the department needs to really update this website. So I can't read everything and I can't show it to you because I don't believe it is fully up to date. I think it's still behind on a few things, for example. So you can then look at what the current opportunities are on SamGov. Like we know, President Trump is wiping out a lot of DEI initiatives, etc. We've got to move forward and look at what other contracts that you can apply for now, because you know that if you have got a contract under that service, for example, you know that that contract's going to be coming to an end if it already hasn't done so. Just drank my tea there. So think about looking at what upcoming opportunities they are, so that way you're prepared, you're ready, okay? And then the next thing you need to do, step 4, is to understand the State Department procurement rules. So here you will see in the link that I put in the chat that there's federal acquisition regulations, there's Department of State acquisition regulations, there's Foreign Affairs handbook and Foreign Affairs manual. You need to read through that as well, and the Department of State website as well. Then, number 5, you need to create a consistent, solid market presence. So develop a capability statement which clearly defines your offerings, your differentiations, your customers, and the list you've set aside, if any, and contact information as well. So you want to invest in a professional presence with a website and business cards that speak to the government market by demonstrating your knowledge in the market and the challenges and your solutions that you're able to offer with this approach, for example. Number 6, it says to obtain the necessary security clearance. So most services contracts will require successful offerers to possess security clearance due to the nature of the department's mission, for example. So you got to understand what the requirements are, for example, for your facility security clearance for your business, because you're going into their realm, you're going into their online internet portal, for example. And also there's personal security clearance for employees that will be performing key duties when they're using your computer, for example, or within a computer, or the state department's contracts section, for example, that they've been aligned to. Number 7 is to tap in your networks, for example, attend networking events, benchmarking opportunities, industry days, find out who they are, who the bidder is, conference, and where the buyer agencies will be and what presence, where will they be? Try and suss out what they look like, who they are, so that you're ready when you're in that event, for example. So market your products and your services to the networks, which will include your small business peer network, large contractors, for example, and government agencies as well. So then number 8, start by subcontracting. I would say to do this because you will be amazed what you will get from subcontracting. You could have about 2, 3, 4 subcontracts in a year that's going to be regular because they've got it for years, for example. So it's common for companies that are new to State Department to subcontract to current organizations to gain experience with the mission, practices, and environment in performing the State Departments, for example. So research current prime contractors and awarded programs. Now remember, we've now got the DEIA, for example, that Donald Trump has, quashed, for example. So we've got to make sure that when you're applying for contracts, you're not going on that basis and that it's got nothing to do with that. You're going on merit. You're going on what your experience is and what your qualifications are and how much years experience you've got and how you can solve that problem for them. Okay, so just bear that in mind. We've got to forget about the DEIA, for example, when we're looking to apply for these particular contracts. Okay, so research current prime contractors and look at seeing whether you can subcontract with them. So some subcontracting opportunities, they are posted in the SBA. For example, you can explore this and forming relationships as well, agreements with both parties are mutually beneficial and strategically aligned to consider forming the joint ventures that you would like to do, for example. So number 9 is consider contracting vehicles. So contracting vehicles, it's just telling you about what you need to think about when you're looking to contract with the department, with the State Department, for example. So another thing is strategically set asides, for example. The Small Business Act and the Federal Acquisition Regulations mandate the federal agencies set aside work for small and businesses through the small businesses, which is known as the WOSB, for example. But we've also got to bear in mind that things have changed over the last couple of weeks. We're in our 3rd week now. So I don't believe that this is up to date. So I'm trying to read what I can see. For example, another part of this is that you identify which you may qualify for to gain additional opportunities to bid in this competition. Okay, so keep in mind the purpose of federal agency is to carry out its mission, and therefore set aside status alone is insufficient in winning a contract. Technical competence, understanding of the requirements, the industry experience, and the ability to perform the technical and business functions are all essential elements of a successful bidder. And this is what you need to look at reading through once you're on this website. But you can see here, for example, the US Department of State, for example, that the spreadsheet that I put here, for example, let's just see if I can see the one where it talked about the cars. I'm seeing some changes happening here already. So I'm just wondering what's happened to the one that was between said 4 to 500 million. Just finding the amount. So as you can see here, if you're looking at the spreadsheet, it's got estimated value, and it starts from 1 million to 5 million, 20 million to 50 million, 3 years, 1 year, for example, 1 million to 5 million. And it tells you the point of contact as well. And I'm just trying to find the one that said it would go. Is this the one? Yeah, so armored electric vehicles. This contract is worth, it says 100 and 500 million. And I believe this is the one that Elon Musk said that he'd won. And I believe also it was discussed this morning, and it's a 5-year contract. But I also want you to think about this if you are an organization who provides things like this to the department, the State Department, for example, and suddenly you're being told that someone has won or is applying for this. There's a conflict of interest, and it would seem as an unfair advantage to those that are applying, because Elon Musk is in the, you saw him standing talking in the Oval Office, and he lives, well, he's staying, not lives, he stays at, Donald Trump's house, for example, and he's there talking for the IT and the Doge team, what they're doing. So there's a conflict, and I also believe he's being paid by the government as well, daily, a lot of money. So I believe that this is a conflict. So maybe what I've just read now, where is kind of like backtracked from what was said earlier, kind of changed a bit. So I still haven't done more research on that. So as you can see, there's a spreadsheet here that's got a lot of contracts here, which is mail support. There's lots of different types of, there's warehouse, for example, labor contract. There's lots of things that you can look at doing yourself as a business owner, for example. If you're in the States, they've even got international on here as well. So even if you're not in the States, then look into this. I put the link into the chat for you to have a look at you can look now or in your own time. Okay, so I would look at the secret sauce is subcontracting right now. And this is the secret to winning without the direct award of it as well. And even if you don't qualify for a direct contract, you can partner with other companies that do have this, and they've won, for example. And guess what? They need small businesses like you to help them fulfill that contract. So don't be shy. Approach them. Approach those organizations, for example. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is looking at possibly how much money can you make with a government contract. Well, it all depends on the type of contract that you want to apply for. So that's something for you to have a look through once you've gone through the Department of State website, the contracts that they've got. Look, Elon Musk is on there, is applying, and he's already had several contracts from before. It's not the first time that he's applying, because obviously he has made some amazing things. I can't deny that. Environmentally, look at that motorhome, look at the car, the self-drive car, look at the taxi firm, for example, that he has. It's self-driving. But there's things which you can do as well as a small business owner or just starting out. The secret sauce is subcontracting, especially how things are today. To get your feet wet, you need to go in and start delving in and finding out where you can get these contracts from. And on the government website, the links are there. So you'll be able to see for yourself. Even if you don't live in the States, you can look at international. They've got international contracts as well that you can look at supplying. And let's face it, you can have a business and run a business anywhere in the world, for example, and supply a contract to another location that's not necessarily in your country, because especially with the tariffs, the way they're going at the moment, the tariffs being put on, then if you're in the States, then you can provide something a lot cheaper, for example. So, look at these things. Even if you're in the UK, you can look at offering things a lot cheaper, for example, depending on where you are around the world, for example, because, I don't think Donald Trump is going to stop with these tariffs until he's, written to everybody about this. But look at the things that you can do, look at the things you can control. And I would definitely be looking at going on to the State Department on their website, for example, to see what contracts that you can apply for. Now, if you would like me to go through a few things with you, I can do, and I will do, but I won't be doing that today, for example, because I want you to have time to look at the departments of, the State Department, and look at what contracts are out there that you can get. Try and go for ones that are like, 1 million, 5 million, for example. Okay, because then you got a really strong chance of getting them. Okay, now I know we can't make armored vehicles or anything like that. Some of you might do, I don't know, because if you are working in defense, for example, and you provide defense equipment, for example, to the State Department, then yeah, you're doing it already, for example. But there's lots there. There's also, you need to go onto sam.gov, for example. I've listed the websites, and I'm going to put the link in the description, because there's about 4 websites. I'm going to put them into the description after this live, so that you can click and have a look at it, for example, and just play around with it and get yourself registered as well, and get your cage code, for example, and all of those other things. Read the State Department of the United States. Read the working with them, because you want to work with them. So read what it is that you need to do and have to qualify with them, for example. I hope that was helpful to you all, and thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate it. If you found this useful, please do like and subscribe to the channel so that you get further updates. And what I want to be able to show you is that, at the end of the day, we can, just because there's billionaires out there, doesn't mean to say you can't apply for these contracts to do with the government. Let's look at doing it. Don't just think that that's too big for you. Look at the ones that you can do, of course, and look at the department, the State Department, and look at what contracts they've got available. But don't go on the basis of DEIA now. Try and look, because those are, we might as well say they're gone, they're finished. So just look for the other ones that aren't DEIA, for example. And if you are one of those contractors that's got a contract with because of the DEIA, then you could be at risk. You probably could lose it, for example. So if you haven't done so already, because some people have lost their contracts, literally, and especially if they was subcontracting as well, and it was to do with DEIA, for example, then the subcontractors have lost them. So try and steer away from that and look at the other things that you can do, and that's going to help the government to fulfill the needs of providing that contract. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, and I hope that you've enjoyed today, and I really do appreciate you subscribing to the channel. I appreciate your likes. I love your comments. Let's work together. Build let's build something together. Let's not tear each other down. Let's build each other up so that you can grow, for example. But most of all, I want you to be the eagle. I want you to be the eagle that's strong and that can do a lot of the work, for example, and learn how to do this and run it and become stronger, just like the eagle. The eagle flies high. They look down below to see what's happening. Yeah, just think of the eagle mentality. That's why Americans have the eagle as their logo, don't they? Because the eagle can live 70 years, for example, but it has to make a decision in its 40th year, for example. Does it want to live or die? Because its wings get heavy. It becomes really heavy. The beak becomes bent, so it's hard to, get the fish out the water, for example. The claws become, like not so good, for example. So what happens here is that they make a decision, and if they want to live, they fly high in the mountains, and I'm sure you know all of this, in a quiet space, and they are there for months, and they literally are breaking their beak against a rock, and then a new beak forms, and with that new beak they're then able to pull its own talents out and then pull its own feathers out until new grows, and then it becomes new again, and then it's able to fly stronger than what it did before and live for another 30 years. And that is an amazing story, which is true. So I want you to have the eagle mentality, because the eagle flies with the wind. Even when the storm is hitting it, it doesn't run from the storm. It flies into the storm, and then the wind carries it, and then it goes up higher. Whereas the smaller birds, they hide in the trees, don't they, until the storm passes. Whereas the eagle loves the storm. It just flies into it. And this is what I want you to embrace. Yes, there's a difficult time going on at the moment. It's a very trying time, but we've got to all get into the eagle mentality to grow stronger and stronger and fly higher and higher. That is what we need to focus on. What can we do? Because we're looking at them every day. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, we're looking at them. They're billionaires. They're billionaires. But what can you do to make yourself stronger and to leave a legacy, for example? And this is why I want you to have a look at the contracts here on the government, the US State Department, and see what contracts you can look at for yourself and apply for them. Okay, so I hope that you found that helpful, and stay tuned, because I will be on here again tomorrow at 7 p.m. because I want to be able to enlighten you and to go through things. I will be covering some CQC, which is Care Quality Commission for the UK, but I'm also going to cover something as well for America as well. So you're getting a two-pronged attack, and hopefully it will help you to enrich your life. That's what I want to do. I want to help you to become stronger and to grow your mindset and to become your true vision of who you are, for example. So have a wonderful evening, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Stay blessed, and I will speak with you tomorrow, and I will see you on the internet. Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.